So today I have two incredible speakers joining me to share how they leverage their networks to support portfolio growth and investor relations. I'm Dominique Simon-Ritchie. I'm the CTO at Affinity. I know how to use technology, I swear. And with me, I have Samantha Santaniello-Lawrence, Head of Platform at MassMutual Ventures, as well as Jolene Vallejo, Chief of Staff at Kapor Capital. Thank you both for being here today. As many of you know, your network is one of your biggest assets. We often talk about its ability to drive deals, whether that's investing or reinvesting in a founder you've previously connected with, or getting referral introduction to a new opportunity. And so in this session, we want to highlight a different perspective, how your network can enhance your firm's ability to support portfolio companies and to strengthen LP management and fundraising efforts. Portfolio support has always been very important, and providing access to revenue-generating opportunities, experts, talent is a significant way that firms can support portfolio companies. And similarly, your network is where your current and future LPs are sourced from. So over the course of this session, Samantha will share how MassMutual Ventures has set up Affinity to manage their portfolio companies, and then Jolene will take the reins to share how Kapor Capital approaches LP management and fundraising. If we have remaining time, they do have lots of great content, so that might not be the case. We'll open the floor to you, the audience, for questions directed to both Samantha and Jolene. So let's get started with Samantha.
Hi guys, Samantha Santaniello-Lawrence. So I am head of platform at MassMutual Ventures. We are the corporate venture arm of MassMutual Financial Group. We have about $1.5 billion of AUM, are a global fund, and have, I think, approaching 70 portfolio companies, and we're investing at the Series A, Series B stage. I have been head of platform for 4.5 years now, and when I had joined MassMutual MMV, we really there was no consistent way in which our portfolio companies were getting introductions to potential commercial relationships, partnerships, really anything, because our investors have a core that they need to invest. So they were really just doing it off the side of their desk. So when I came on board, really the goal was to institutionalize this effort to drive value from our network. So after talking to our investors and a lot of the portfolio companies, we are really operating on these two foundational pillars. One is accelerating the growth of the portfolio, and the other is strengthening our partner network. So the former is really how we can leverage our network to drive introductions for our portfolio companies to potential commercial partners, commercial or strategic partnerships, placing key talent hires, and then any sort of advisory or independent board seats, things like that, and then also connecting to our parent company. The other is strengthening our partner network. Think of this as top of funnel. What can I do to help build our network to really drive more introductions to our portfolio? So the process at a glance, and leading back to it, we leverage Affinity to really help manage all of this, and then also provide measurements. And I'll talk about that when we dig into some of the lists that I work from. So my process at a glance is, in order for platform means a lot of things to a lot of different funds, but really my expertise is in a product background and then also a revenue background. So when I joined, I was like, the only way that this platform function is going to work is if I'm involved very early on in the process. So I often get introduced in the diligence phase, and that is to assist our investors in diligence, but then also to actually share how we are providing value-added services to our portfolio company. And I will often show an Affinity list and say, here's all of the deals we helped our portfolio companies close, and this is what we can do for you. So the needs assessment, initially, we have an onboarding document that we that we give out. This is to collect key information, so leadership backgrounds, what the ICP is, what the priority list is for introductions, and then all of the other needs that may come up. And this is coming from a 90-minute. I'll have like an introductory 60 to 90-minute meeting with every single one of our leadership, every single one of our portfolio companies, and we measure this through something called 90s, 90 minutes every 90 days, and this is where we dig deep into what's working and what's not. So given that these are happening on a quarterly basis, we have an affinity list that we will not talk about today, but it is 90s, and think of 70 portfolio companies, and then all of sort of the notes that are happening, and this feeds into the stuff that we will talk about. What also happens here is really understanding priorities from a sales perspective. So it's, hey, show me your pipeline list. I will take this pipeline list. I will look in our affinity network and really understand who we know from each of the companies that our portfolio companies are looking to sell into, and basically return that same spreadsheet to them with a green, yellow, red, saying, okay, this company is someone that we know really well. We have 10 contacts here. This is going to be easy, yellow, maybe a second degree connection, and then third is going to be red. I don't know anyone here. Let's not waste time. And this actually helps with speed to introduction. The next piece is we actually leverage affinity alliances and their Chrome plugin. So we have now, during our onboarding process, we've worked with the CEO, and to the extent that they have a leadership team, like a CRO or head of sales, to help them prospect within our network. So a really cool example that happened just 2 weeks ago was one of our account executives at a legal tech company reached out to me and said, hey, after getting onboarded with Affinity Alliances, I saw that you were connected to this CRO at another portfolio company of ours. And they were like, can you make an introduction? I did, and they're doing business. They are going to do business today. So I thought that's a great way. The alliances feature is a really easy, low-level lift for our sales team to prospect within our network and sort of add into an inbound touch point for us as well. And staying founder-focused, I mean, I think we are all here to do that as investors. And a lot of the the stuff that I will do is, monthly or quarterly calls with our founders, really to understand those needs and change the path for support if needed. But then also we have a MMV scorecard, which is a year-end thing where I will talk about this in more detail soon. Supporting our founder networking. So back to that right pillar a couple of slides ago, I will host dinners, or wine tasting events, and these are hyper curated and often are fed by our affinity networking lists or network management lists. So our goal here is to expand the network, have a touch point, and provide peer-to-peer networking opportunities, because we want to really engage. We want a very engaged network. We want a CISO at, let's take Intel, because Jennifer was just talking. We want the CISO at Intel to work with one of our portfolio companies. So how can we have a bunch of different touch points that would add value to this person as well? Health of pipeline in business and help prioritizing targets for our portfolio companies. That I had just discussed, talking about affinity alliances and how we sort of compare our network with the pipeline of our portfolio companies. And then there's all of I would say I spend 80% of my time working on things that are generating revenue, but then there is other general support that our portfolio companies need. tech stack discounts. This is AWS, NetSuite, all of those things. But then, talent has been an emerging theme. Being able to quickly and efficiently and cheaply hire key talent for our portfolio companies. So we manage a separate spreadsheet of talent. So when our portfolio companies exit, and we loved working with their CPO, we throw that person into our talent list, drop their resume in, and then try to play matchmaker there. So this is, I mentioned a couple of lists, but when I was working with Affinity, before this that we're not going to talk about, when I was working with Affinity, what I really wanted to do was share the juiciest stuff with you. And this MMV introductions list it's very vague, but this is everything. This is every single piece of work that I do to support our portfolio company. So digging in, this is on, thankfully for this confidence board. So this is an opportunities list. We have a naming convention that is always portfolio company on the left, dash, whatever they are doing, whatever they are selling into, whatever person we are connecting them with, whatever company name. So it's always portfolio company and then the opportunity that exists. The next is the support category. So when I was designing this list, and thanks to the help of Jen, our CSM, she's amazing and not here today, but I was trying to figure out all of the things that I do. It just feels like just a wide range of categories that we really needed to be tactical about how we track these. So a lot of it is going to be sales, so partnership, external intros, events, operational support. So I was a CRO at a early stage company. Oftentimes early stage companies, product sales and marketing support. And then this is how we will just sort of organize sort of the things that we're doing on behalf of our portfolio companies. Next one over, the status is going to change depending on the support category. So this is a non-exhaustive list of the categories, but let's take sales and external intros. What we want to know is, was the intro made? Mm-hmm. If the intro was made, how often are we, or if the introduction was made, what's the next thing in the pipeline? Do they go into a POC? Did the customer say, are we going to be on hold? Let's put this on hold, or this is not relevant at this time. And this is really helpful for us at MMV to track how long these things are taking. MassMutual, large financial services company, so that's where our network is the strongest. So we want to better understand what's the lead time, or what's the sales cycle here from getting introduction to large financial services company, and then we'll talk through, this is a talking point for us and our portfolio companies. The next column over is organizations. This is tagging the organization in the opportunity list, and then also tagging the portfolio company, and then the people involved in the introduction. So it could be me, it could be one of our investors, the commercial, or, someone in our network, and obviously the portfolio company who's managing that. Close date is also super important. So how long is it taking me to find the right person to connect our portfolio company with, and then also for them to close a deal or not close a deal. We run analytics on this as well at year end, and this really helps us optimize. We use Affinity analytics on this, and this really helps us optimize our process. The feedback is a note section for us where we just keep track of everything in there. Our investors sometimes read notes, and I have very detailed information, including here, someone in our network, they have 3 kids and they went to San Francisco for the Affinity conference. Sam, ask them the next time you're on a call how that conference was and how their kids are doing. But this also helps us keep track of, it's great. what's going on with the opportunity as well, and drives the conversation in our monthly calls with our portfolio companies. So total contract value is a KPI tracker for me. So as head of platform and focused very much on revenue and revenue excellence, whatever you want to call it, I have a goal every year to help our portfolio companies close $2 million of annual recurring revenue through introductions made by me. So this is where I keep track of how well I'm doing. And this is super helpful. So at year end, I say, hey, investors, these are all the contracts I help close. And then with this, it's searchable, which I love about this Affinity list. So this is how I can pull together the total contract value or the total ARR for the year, and then also talk about all of the other things that I do outside of just revenue driving activities. The second piece of this is I talked about our portfolio scorecard. So it's similar to an NPS, but I will search by portfolio company. Let's take Affinity because we are proud investors in Affinity. And I will search Affinity and say, okay, here are all the things that I think we did, and I'm documenting in this list. Can you just confirm that these are the things that you think we did for you as well? And this helps us really level set with our portfolio companies. And then also a key conversation starter of what can we do better next year to help keep driving the communication with the portfolio company, and then also just establishing a better relationship. The next two lists are they are different ways of slicing and dicing the same data. So this list is a network management by function. And what we want to do, we're taking CISOs as an example with this list. And this is a people list. So this is one list of, I think, 7 or 8 that I manage. So you can think of these people lists of industry experts. So CISOs, digital experience or customer experience, product people, CTOs, and all of the people that have that title or some semblance of that title go into these lists. So it's going to be the person, their email, date of the last call is going to be. This is super important because we want, as I mentioned, a super engaged network. I want to have at least one touch point with every person in our network once a month. So if that is not happening, I have the very handy reminder feature through Affinity that I place on every single person and just say, just give me a reminder, make sure I reach out to this person with every 30 days. And then it's notes on call. So this is going to be filled with all of my, fun little notes and anecdotes about people. And then the type of interactions this is actually an exhaustive list, but this is what we engage these people for. So we want to know what events they've come to. We want to know if they are talking to our portfolio companies as a potential opportunity, commercial opportunity. We want to know if they are current customers or product champions of our company. We want to know if they are providing product feedback or doing advisory work for our portfolio companies. And this is just how we keep track of our people. Industry, CISOs, our portfolio, we are thematic investors. We invest across the board. We want to know what industries they are in to give us a really good sense of, where we need to grow our network. And then portfolio company engagement and relevance. So engagement is, are they currently working with a portfolio company in whatever way? And then portfolio company relevance is going to be, can they have a relevant conversation with these people? And then also keeping track of what their interests are. So if it's not a portfolio company, is there an advisory board seat, or, is there another way to engage them? So the next one is network management by industry. This is, we're taking insurance as an example. And this is serves many purposes, but think of this list as the 50,000-foot view of us, of our network within a certain industry. Our portfolio companies are often selling into the same industry. And what we want to get a sense of is what portfolio companies are working with that company today. What portfolio companies are looking to work with that company, and then, and then the introduction status again is: have I reached out to this company? Have we identified a certain, prospects within the company, and then won or lost? One would be, yes, I made this. I found someone at this company that I think can talk to one of our portfolio companies. And then again, relevance and portfolio company relevance is who could potentially work with these and where are they identified in one or many of our prospect lists. And then contact relevance, and connections. These two go hand in hand. And what we really want to see is how many people are, do we know it? Let's take United Health. And do we know, if we know 20 people, that's awesome. They're probably going to appear in one of our other network management lists, and then who our connections are. And then that way I can bring this up to our portfolio companies in our 90-day meetings and say, okay, look, we have 20 people. Any of the connections that we made, are they relevant for you? And yeah, this really just helps us keep a good track. And for example, these are all very large organizations, but if our portfolio company is looking to sell into a smaller, medium-sized business, this helps us gives us a sense of where our network is the strongest. If we have 0 people from one company and they're on 6 portfolio company prospects list, that means, Sam, I have to go expand our network in that industry. So this is the 3 that these are the 3 that we really care about. So MMV introductions, massive, and then the network management by industry and function. There's many of them so this list is replicated: healthcare, banking, all of the above. So I will pause there, and I'm going to hand this over to Jolene.
She's a tough act to follow. That is a lot of work.
Yes, words.
MassMutual is very lucky to have me. Not know about your individual KPIs. That is huge. All right, so let's see. Here we go. Hi, everybody. My name's Jolene. I'm Chief of Staff at Campfire Capital. I want to thank Affinity for bringing us here to this beautiful Presidio. I'm a San Francisco native. Who's a native in this room? Yeah. This never gets old, right? It's so beautiful to come to the Presidio. So thank you for having us here and giving us an excuse to convene. As I was saying, I'm Chief of Staff at Campfire Capital, and Campfire Capital is an early stage impact investing firm. For those of you that don't know Campfire, we were early investors in Asana, Twilio, Uber, and a couple other big companies like that. And 2011 and forward, the partners created a mandate to be impact only. So what that means is no longer looking at traditional SaaS software companies, but looking at companies that are tech-enabled, that have products or solutions that significantly improve the lives of marginalized communities or communities of color. So that's huge. And what that means is our investments typically fall in edtech, fintech, health tech, sustainability, a couple others. So even though we are sector agnostic, to close gaps of access, we typically are looking at investments in those industries. I am Chief of Staff, and what that means is I support both of our general partners. I run a number of processes. I did an overhaul with the tech stack. We moved away from legacy systems like Asana, even though we're investors in Asana, and replaced it with Affinity. And we've been very happy since. Our productivity has improved. We're very efficient, and we've been able to resurface many old contacts from days prior to 2011. So lots of partners have come and left Campfire Capital, but we have access to those emails. We were able to resurface old conversations, old co-investors, and reestablish those networks again. So we've been very happy since. One of the big items that I work on with the partners is LP relations. I also support the fundraise, and we recently, not so recent actually, more like 2.5 years ago, closed an oversubscribed fund, 126 million, which is our fund 3. However, I want to note, because it's important for this conversation, that fund 1 and fund 2 were funded with a solo LP, which means fund 3 is our first institutional fund. And that's important because I'm going to show you a couple of lists and talk about the way that we work our LP engagement and the way we fundraise. And maybe some of that might be helpful for you. So just to get my bearings here with the audience, who works more than 50% of their time on LP relations and fundraising? Okay. Who supports their GPs with fundraising even if they're not on the IR side? Okay, great. So, I'm going to talk about how we engage our LPs. I'm going to talk about how we track our events and the attendance of our events. And even if an LP doesn't attend, we still track that engagement, and I'll explain why. And then we're going to talk about this exciting forecasting feature, which is relatively new, that we've now been starting to use to have some predictability about the future in fundraising. At Campfire Capital, we are fans of organization lists and people lists. For different use cases, opportunities lists are better, but for LP engagement, I find that organizational lists work the best. And when I use a communication stream, then I move over to people list. So what I have here and what I want to show you is a very, very fake list of LPs. These are not real LPs. So, Mr. Gates from Cascade Investments, that is his family office. They are not our investors. The same with the teacher fund, Mr. Teacher, and John Doe, which is Mr. High Net Worth. But the reason I created these fake LPs is because I did want to mirror similar columns. So these columns are quite similar to what we have internally at Cape One. And you'll notice that in each column, there are some events that we start tracking attendance or engagement for. So this is our current LP list. We track the amount that they've put into our fund. But as we start thinking about Fund 4, we want to know, are they going to re-up? Are they going to stay in the fund? Will they stay with the same amount? Will they stay with a less amount? Or will they actually go over? So one of the things that helps us understand how interested our LPs are, or maybe how engaged or happy they are, is by tracking their engagement with us. So walking you through this quickly, we've got our current Fund 3 amount, we've got our main contact, we've got the type of investor, we've got our potential Fund 4 engagement. So will it be the same? Will it be 50%? Have we even had a conversation? The approximate amount that I think they may come in for. And this helps me give just a bird's eye view to our GPs on where these LPs might come in. But before I start talking about that, I'll just quickly talk about these events here that you see on the right. So we run small roundtables, like Samantha was saying, small Jeffersonian type dinners, very curated as well, invite only. And it helps us understand our LPs, but it also helps open our network up to our LPs. A lot of times, as you might know, when you're fundraising, LPs are looking for different things. Sometimes they're not just looking for returns, they're looking for your network. They want to understand impact, or they want to get maybe an opportunity to co-invest with you. So keeping those things in mind is how you want to build your list. If you see here on the next slide, I've got, did they attend our quarterly Q2 call or a quarterly Q1 call? And our partners run a quick kind of ask me anything after we send out our quarterly letter to get our LPs to join. They go on Zoom, they share out some of the highlights and market updates, and then they get to answer questions. And then on the side, you'll see the probability. But before I talk about that, I want to go back to the engagement tracking. As you'll see, when I have that column of did they attend the event, it's not just a yes and no column. I'm tracking RSVP no, RSVP yes. RSVP yes, did they not show up? Or RSVP no, but we had a quick email engagement. You can't expect LPs to, if they don't show to your event, that means no engagement or they don't care. That's not true. They're busy people. But if they took the time to email me back and say, hey, Jolene, you know what? I'm booked, or this sounds great. Please keep me posted for the next one. Then I know they're interested. So I track that as well. And then what I do in the future is sometimes I'll segment my LPs based on those responses. So from this list here, there's three main things that I get out of it. One is segmentation. So whether that's segmentation based on their answers or segmentation based on the type of investor that they are, family office, endowment, pension fund. This is important because the needs of a high net worth investor is very different than the needs of a pension fund. Typically, the larger the institution, the less engagement they want because they're dealing with so many different funds. But family offices tend to have different needs. They're more curious. They want to learn. Maybe they don't really understand venture. So when I segment my family office LPs, I will curate programming for them differently. And then I'll even segment again from that family office list and look at a smaller subset of who hasn't engaged with me at all over the past X amount of time. And this is why I like the organization list over the opportunities list, because all that enriched data will help me see across my team, not just with me, when was the last time someone emailed them, when was the last time we saw them in person, that kind of thing, or if there was an actual meeting scheduled. Now, getting to the predictability that I wanted to talk about, without giving away too much of our K4 Capital secret sauce, each event that we have in these columns, so whether it's attended our annual meeting, came to our Jeffersonian blah, 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 or founder LP dinner, we have a metric system where we calculate a weighted point or points on the event. And then that weighted point gets divided into 4 categories. And basically those 4 categories are from 0 to 1. So 25%, 50%, 75%, or 100. There's no point in making the predictability maybe more segmented, because at the end of it, you're just predicting. You're just trying to get a sense, right? If you divide it more, then you're just getting caught in the weeds. So what we do then is with that number based on that engagement, again, not necessarily meaning they showed up, but they had an engagement, then we take that number and we put them into one of these 4 categories. And then from that probability rating where you see 0.5, we look at the original fund amount. And if it's 3 million, 5 million, whatever that number is, we create the function in the probability column just to give me an idea of where I am with my current LP base. So as we get started for Fund 4, which we're talking about right now internally to maybe hit market next year, then I know what my delta is between my current LP base and what I will need to source out from new LPs that are not in my base. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So that's the probability function. Thank you for that function. Now, moving on to contacts, this is where I use a people list. And I really like the people list because one thing is tracking engagement by institution. Another thing is how you engage with people. I think everyone here in this room knows, and this conference is called Relationship Intelligence. Venture capital is the industry of relationships. So for me, I want to be able to communicate and track my emails with my segmented folks. And this is where I just do the bulk email. I think everyone's familiar with this feature. We also track the email so that I can see have they opened it or not. I don't want to assume that they looked at it. I want to know if they did. And then I do track the events as well. Some of it is a little bit manual work, but a hack that I found is when we have an event, instead of going on a dual screen, I don't know how many of you work with both screens, instead of looking on one screen and then clicking yes to all the events that the LP attended to, I just have my EA read them out loud to me, and it's so much easier because it takes 5 minutes. She just reads the name, I scroll down, I click yes or no RSVP, instead of doing that dual screen, which will take me about a half an hour. So just sharing that little hack. It doesn't even have to be your EA. Sometimes it's my daughter. So we'll just read them out to me from the other screen. But it takes literally 5 minutes, and that's why I love that plus button on the left, because I don't even have to finish typing the name of the person. It'll just pop up. The last thing I want to share about the people list, which is important, is a lot of times, and I love the enriched data that we get in from Crunchbase or Clearbit, it'll show me the location. And typically, I will create an itinerary for my GP when he's traveling especially if he's got some time in his schedule to either meet with a high-level founder or meet with an LP. But what happens is, especially in this remote world, a lot of the folks that the organization might be in Colorado, but they're living in New York, or et cetera. So as you'll see here, I have a column of confirmed location, and then I have the location visible, just to see. Sometimes they coincide, sometimes they don't. Or sometimes, as you'll see in this example, it'll just say California, and then I know it's LA. So again, when I'm segmenting, and if we go back to these other lists here, sometimes when I want to manipulate data upon data, I just download the CSV file, and that way I can go nuts with my filters instead of doing that on Affinity, which can sometimes just take a little more time. Now I want to talk about actual fundraising. So for those of you that are maybe helping your GPs fundraise, or you want to get more involved in that process, I always use, again, an organizations list. And what I'll show you here is very simple, similar to the way I have set up my Fund 3 list or my existing LPs. This is now a list of LPs that are either cold, we've never had a conversation, or someone referred them, or whatever the case is, and I've included them here. Now, sometimes we have a high net worth individual, and you might be asking yourself, well, how do you put in a person on an organization list? In those cases, we just actually create a kind of fake org. It won't pull in a URL, and it won't pull in the enriched data, but we find that those cases are maybe 10 high net worth or extremely high net worth individuals. It's not more, or it's not enough for us to go to the opportunities list. We still stay in the organizational list because of that data enrichment. If anyone else has a hack on that, I'd be willing to talk to them afterwards, but that's the hack that we found. So in this case, fund to funds number 1, or in the case before, I just created a Mr. High Net Worth. This is an org list, but you'll see Mr. High Net Worth. So with the fundraising list, though, here are some cool things that you can do and that you can add value to your GPs, and your GPs will love you. So the number one thing is, I don't know if you sit on calls with your GPs during the fundraise, but whether you do or you don't, you just want to get kind of like gauge their gut right after that call. Hey, how'd you think that go? Do you think you're going to have a second call? What's the probability? And then whatever that is, we put it in an assigned probability column here. That just helps us, not for actual money conversation, it helps us understand who do we need to pinpoint more, who do we need to push over to get them to the first close, and who do we need to engage maybe less with because they're already at that 75%. Let's engage with folks that are in that 25% range. So here are our statuses. I do get a little nerdy with these statuses because now I want more granular information. This is no longer predictability. This is real facts. Was it a cold new LP? Do I need to engage with them and actually schedule the call? Is it a first call? Have I sent them materials? Have I sent them the data room? Are we actually in diligence? And so for me, what's important here is I want to know, especially if we're getting close to that first close, I want to know, how do I get them to actually commit to this first close? I might do some programming specific to that 75%. I might do something specific to climate tech if I realize that all of these folks are interested in climate. So whatever it is, I engage with my GPs, we talk strategy, but we have real facts here. Same like other organizations, we're going to have type of investor, main contact, et cetera. And then I like to keep everything in one place. And that's one of the things with Affinity that we were able to solve. Before having Affinity, we did have docs in a Google folder, contacts in some of our Excel sheets. A lot of things lived in the inboxes of our GPs. Please don't share that outside this room. And now we track our docs in the list. So as you'll see here, I've got a column 4. And again, this is now assuming that we've nailed this LP. They're coming in for the first, second close, whatever it is. And now I need to send them docs. I need to make sure those docs have been signed and they come back to us. So I have a column for each. The portal, whether it's Carta or whatever your fund admin is, And then it's just a yes or no, simple as that. And then once those two have been completed, we send a welcome to the fund. So with that, I think we're out of time. I'm here if we have more questions, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. We are at a time, so we're actually not going to take your questions right now. Thank you, Jolene and Samantha, for sharing. Like, you were clearly power users. Really great tips. So thank you.
Thank you.
That.